And also, just remember that. What's that? You're controlling ours right now, I think, Mary, when you're adjusting it. Also, again, keep your system on mute. And when you do talk, say your site, your name before the question and stuff. We get that point because it does take. You almost got to talk for like 5 or 6 seconds before it does change the camera to your site. So today is February 13th, and our topic today is Dakota Link assistive technology referral process. It has been a number of years since we have done training on referrals to and from Dakota Link and how to use assistive technology, and it's important that we felt it's important to go back and to have a refresher onto that for our staff that have been with us for a while, but also it probably is a new presentation for staff who have been hired on the last 4 or 5 years, because I think it's been a number of years since we've done this training on the referral process for Dakota Link. We have established a successful model with assistive technology working with Dakota Link throughout the past years. And this model is considered a best practice in South Dakota, and many other states are trying to set up a similar model that we have established. It has provided available assistive technology resources throughout the state that are readily available for not only voc re-up consumers, but also for students with disabilities and also for employers and other agencies out there. Most of you can realize that many of our consumers have unique needs and many times immediate needs. A job offer can be made to your consumer tomorrow, but they are going to need some unique assistive technology equipment or support services, and of course the employer is going to need it like right now, and we can't expect the employer to wait for someone to come across the state or for us to find someone and to help us with that. So that's why it's been a successful model with us in using Dakota Link. Dakota Link has helped establish staff across the state. They have helped establish the expertise in a lot of various assistive technology, and there is a lot out there. And they've also established a method to provide services to our consumers in a timely fashion. One thing I do want to talk to you about, it's important that everyone understands how Dakota Link is funded. Dakota Link is funded mostly through fees for services. And so they're able to fund their positions and pay their office space and their operational costs through the fees for services that are generated through Division of Rehab Services and SPVI, the schools, employers, and other agencies out there. And I do want to inform staff about this and the importance for them to realize this, because some of the other service delivery positions out there, and I'm going to use a transition service liaison project for an example, they are funded on a grant. Their positions are paid for already up front, and then we lay out the scope of services that they will do throughout the year. And even though Dakota Link is in the same agency, they are not funded that same way onto there. So it's important that we realize that Dakota Link needs to bill for their time of services and their technical assistance that they do provide. You know, and the Dakota Link staff are great resources, and we'd love to have them at meetings and events and project search activities or other community meetings, but we also need to realize that during those meetings they are not collecting any revenue or fees to cover their cost onto there. So we need to keep this in mind when we're inviting Dakota Link. We'd like to have them as many meetings as possible, but it is taken away from their billable time onto there. So I just want our staff to realize that out there, that they are funded in a different way out there. It's also important that we help maintain Dakota Link staff on a regional basis to avoid unnecessary travel costs. You know, at one time, we didn't have a Dakota Link person in Aberdeen. And when we did need someone, they were spending, for their 2 hours of service, probably 8 hours of driving time. And so a significant amount of the cost was spent in travel expenses. And throughout the years that we've been able to utilize their services more in Aberdeen, they've been able to maintain a position up in Aberdeen, and so we're only paying now for more of the direct time and less travel time onto there. So, and that's helped with the other regional locations, and I'll let Dakota Link go through their introduction of their staff in a few minutes, and where the regional people are, because it does help establish more timely services for us and for other people. Before I do turn this over to Steve Stewart and to the Dakota Link staff, I do want to emphasize a couple areas I feel that the VR counselors also need to consider when they're utilizing Dakota Link services. I've seen these as some needs across the last year or so in areas that VR staff should better consider, or how to better utilize or better understand the Dakota Link services. And one example is when we're helping a student go to college, and they have assistive technology involved into there that they're going to need to go to college. I think it's important that we keep an authorization open, or we keep some hours in an authorization, because this is very likely that student is going to run into some AT problems or some technical problems during that school year. And this would offer a way to where they can call directly to the Dakota Link person, or have more of direct access and dealing with their services. Otherwise, they may have to wait to get a hold of a counselor, then to get a plan in place for a few more hours and authorization, and a week, 10 days may have passed where they could have got this done within hours. Another area is to utilize Dakota Link on job site evaluations and with assistive technology. I know we had in Rapid City a consumer who had a lot of assistive technology, from dealing with garage door openers, to getting to their workstation, to their independent living needs, to their personal, all those needs, even getting up and dressed in the morning, to where Dakota Link was heavily involved, and that became a very successful case for us. And even this last week, I was discussing a case with a VR counselor where the consumer came to us and applied for services because their current job was not physically compatible with what they were doing. They didn't have the physical stamina to be standing all day. I believe they were working at as a cashier at a 7-Eleven kind of convenience store. And we were doing some retraining with the individual, but I also suggested that maybe we need to just get Dakota Link into there and talk to the employer, talk to the individual, and see what they can do to deal with some of those physical issues on that, to help with some job site accommodations. So I think we need to also look into that area aspect onto it also. I think the third thing I do want to address is, some of these AT items are getting kind of complex onto there, and we need to probably have some follow-up services also included into there. I've seen some times where we may be calling back to Dakota Link and getting some additional technical assistance or questions or whatever, and they're not billing us, or they're not counting the time, and we're probably not paying for that time. We don't have it authorized into there. It's important that we understand their time is billable, and I'll give you an example. If I was to call our department lawyer on a client case, and I spent about 15 minutes with him discussing, the client situation, and then he spent another 15 minutes talking to me about the fishing report and where to go fishing, odds are I'll probably be billed for 30 minutes total onto there. So, it's very similar to how attorneys bill for their time. and Dakota Link has to be in a very similar situation onto there. Their time is billable, and they need to count that. And we run into this with some other AT vendors. Steve and I did on a van situation that we kept coming back to that person who did the evaluation, and they said, hold it here, I spend 5 hours doing the evaluation, and I'm spending another 8 hours doing follow-up and technical assistance and asking additional questions onto there. And, so we need to include that time into the cost when we're doing that. So I just want people to understand that, it is billable time. It is different from many other vendors we're involved into there, because Dakota Link does need to maintain a level of, call it certification or competency on assistive technology, and that takes quite a bit of time of staff training involvement into there. So I just want to address some of those things about Dakota Link and the great partnership that we have developed throughout. I can't even remember the number of years. I think Pat Zerny will talk about the history and how long we've been working with Dakota Link, but it has been a successful partnership with them, and they have met a great need for many of our consumers into there. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Steve Stewart.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm just going to turn it right over to Pat Zerny. I hope he's in the Rapid City office there, and let him do some of the history and introduce the technicians, and then I'll go on from there.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, you did. Okay, there we go.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the words there from Bernie, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity. I think we all do appreciate the opportunity to sit in on one of your meetings. I know time is valuable, and so we've enjoyed our relationship with the state through the project. It has been 20 years this year. The grant was initially funded to South Dakota in 1992, and I've asked Dave Shear to come in and talk a little bit about the grant and some of the grant activities, and he's here with us in Rapid City. So with that, Dave, if you want to talk about the grant.
Hello, everybody. Hope you can all hear me. Most of you know me, but I'm understanding there are some new staff at Rehabilitation Services. So my name is David Shear, and I've been working with Dakota Link since 1999, and I'm the program coordinator, and I try to coordinate all the grant-related activities. Bernie was probably not entirely accurate in his initial description. We do receive some federal grant funds that come to the state of South Dakota to support and maintain an assistive technology program in the state of South Dakota. That being said, Dakota Link has been a partner with Rehabilitation Services, as Patrick said, for 20 years. And probably one of the things that happens is that VR counselors tend to get the idea that Dakota Link is a VR SBVI partner only, and that's not entirely true. As a state assistive technology program, we are charged to do a number of things, and as the law has evolved over the years, the last reincarnation of the Assistive Technology Act was in 2004, and when the law was rewritten in 2004, all AT programs in the nation were charged to do certain things, 7 specific things. And that was to improve access and acquisition of assistive technology in the areas of education, employment, community living, and telecommunications. So of all the many things that we do, the states were also required in 2004 to focus on 6 primary areas: state level activities and state implementation activities. alternative financing for assistive technology, and that is to help individuals in the state find innovative and approachable ways to fund assistive technology so that they can acquire it and put it to good use. The second thing is to promote and support assistive technology device reutilization and refurbishment. So Dakota Link maintains a website. We have an assistive technology exchange site that anyone in the state of South Dakota can access, and they can purchase, they can sell, they can exchange, trade, give away any kind of AT that they may have or they're looking for. The third area that we're charged to provide services through is assistive technology device loan programs. And Dakota Link, in its 4 offices in the state, maintains a wide variety of assistive technology devices that cover all of our primary areas: education, employment, community living, and technology, or IT, that people can check out and borrow like they were getting a book from the library. They can check out a device and try it out for 2 weeks to see if it's exactly the kind of device that they want, if it'll meet their needs. They can borrow a device that may be similar to one that they have if their device is needing repairs or replacement, or they're waiting for a device. We provide these device loans in order for people to have a chance to try before they buy and to become familiar with different kinds of assistive technology that are available in the market. The fourth area that we're all charged to do are to provide assistive technology device demonstrations. And any citizen in the state of South Dakota, for whatever need, at any age, can come into any one of our 4 offices and have a demonstration of assistive technology devices in the broad categories of AT that exist. So vision devices, hearing devices, augmentative communication devices, mobility devices, anything that we're able to have on hand, we will demonstrate to citizens in South Dakota to help them understand what's available in the realm of AT and what may be useful to them. I'd like to also tell you that the funding of the federal grant has remained level for the last 12 years. There's virtually been no significant increase at all in that time, no increase at all. And over the last 2 years, like most domestic programs funded by the federal government, we have seen small reductions in the amount of funding that we received. This is only important so you understand where we're coming out financially. We do receive some federal funds, and those federal funds are used to help support our offices in Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Brookings, and Aberdeen. Some of the federal grant dollars are used to support our technicians and the programming that is required by the federal government. However, the fee-for-service activities we do strongly augment and support the ability to have the number of technicians that we have currently employed in the state of South Dakota for your use to provide assistive technology device information, referral, and technical assistance. Without this combination of funding supports, we would not be able to cover all of South Dakota. We would not be able to maintain the offices that we have. We would not be able to have the number of staff that we have. It is through this partnership of federal dollars and fee-for-service dollars that we can accomplish so much in South Dakota, and we appreciate the partnership that we have with rehabilitation services and services to the blind and visually impaired, because all of these things make services available to the citizens of South Dakota. I'm sure Pat will have some things to add, but that's all I wanted to tell you about the grant. And if you have questions, you can ask them later on at the end of the presentations.
Thanks, Dave. One of the other grant activities that we are involved in is recycling projects, and we've done many for the state of South Dakota. We're currently involved with SBVI and the closed circuit television program. It's a lease loan program where we have 185 closed circuit televisions out there for individuals that are 55 and older to use to maintain their independence and stay in their homes. The program obviously is in part a fee-for-service program. We do some fees in the delivery and maintenance of those units, but it is also considered a grant activity, and some of the activities that we perform in maintaining that program we consider as a grant write-off. We've had other recycle programs that we've done with the state. The neuromuscular program was in effect for 10 years, from about 2000, maybe it was 8 years, maybe 2000 to 2008. That was a very successful program that we maintained in partnership with the state to help keep people with neuromuscular diseases out of nursing homes. A very successful project. Unfortunately, funding the way it was, that program had to be cut short. We've done other projects for the Department of Education, two in particular, where a large amount of money was acquired for individual school districts to provide assistive technologies to students in their respective districts that would impact the highest number of students possible. The money was directly given to the school districts, but Dakota Link was pretty heavily involved in recommending what types of technology those districts might acquire that would impact the highest number of students possible. We also have had a large project just a couple of years ago with the Department of Special Ed where we reinvigorated our lending library and pumped somewhere in the vicinity of $175,000 into our loan lending library. And that equipment is available not only to school districts but to individuals and anybody who might like to, as Dave mentioned, trial a piece of equipment for a 2-week period. So there's been a lot of successful programs in the past that we've been involved in, both on a fee-for-service and a grant basis. There are a couple that are in the works that are we feel that are very significant to the state. Dave's been heavily involved in the Medicaid recycling program. The state of South Dakota is considering recycling certain pieces of equipment that has been given to Medicaid recipients, and we're pretty heavily involved in trying to design that program with the state, and pretty excited about that as a recycling project for the grant. We also are looking forward to working with the Medicaid waiver program, especially in the area of individuals living in community support settings. They've been limited in the amount of assistive technology they may have in those community support settings to live independently, and we're hoping that we may be able to include more assistive technology into that program to help those individuals live independently or more independently in those settings. The fee-for-service activities were encouraged by the grant as far back as 1998, and the state. We've actually been providing some fee-for-service activities since about 1996, and right in between 1996 and 1998, there was two. One, I covered the eastern or western part of the state, and a gentleman by the name of Gary Carlson covered the eastern part of the state, and we did a lot of free assessments at that time, and the state actually had contracts with other entities at Dakota State at Madison, and actually had a contract employee Russell Koenig down in Yankton that provided some mental health support in direct regards to assistive technology. And our screen just went to the Windows screen. Are we still on? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm still there. I
You're
know
still
I
there.
ramble on,
I think
but
our screen just kind of took over or something
people
like
fall
that.
asleep before the screen does. And then at the same time, right in that area between 1996 and 1998, Ted Carroll also was on a separate contract. And so we had some delivery of assistive technology in South Dakota, but it wasn't near as comprehensive. And we also, in that regard, had some assessments that were provided to individuals in South Dakota, and equipment may have been purchased from Colorado, and then training may have been acquired from another entity to provide them services. And the end result of that, in some cases, was very good, and in some cases was spotty, and in many cases took a very long period of time. And I think both Bernie and Dave pointed to the fact that we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible and trying to mitigate any long-term waits for assistive technology services. And so to that end, in 1998, there was a group of individuals that sat down in the divisions that looked at developing a fee-for-service referral process within the state. And I think it has been mentioned that a process was developed, and that we all, both on the state level and as far as Dakota Link and the other tech acts are concerned, feel like it is a model system that has been developed here in South Dakota that many throughout the country would like to replicate, but have not been able to do so, at least at the level that we have here. And so we're really proud of that as not only as a grant activity to have quicker response to assistive technology services, but obviously it's been beneficial on a fee-for-service basis for the individuals that we did bring on the program to make it more of a comprehensive program. So with the referral process in place since 1998, as Dave mentioned, we established the 4 offices so that we could better serve each vocational rehabilitation office and clientele that that both divisions are working with. And we continue to provide services to other entities, and I'll talk about some of those in a little bit. But I did want to mention, we talked about the grant activities and we talked about the fee-for-service, that most of the technicians' salary is paid for, at least 75% of their salary is paid for by the fee-for-service activities. And so we do have now established those 4 offices. 7 technicians work in those 4 offices. And I wanted to take just a little bit of time to introduce those technicians. I have, of course, been with the project since almost the beginning. I think I came on probably a couple months after the project started. And in those very early days, many of you know, and some of you don't know, that it was completely an awareness program, and we drove around these big mobile units, these 32-foot mobile units, and we went to every event we would get invited to and simply show people all the technology that is available out there. And that's what I did for a couple years, and that's what Gary Carlson, who manned the eastern part of the state, did as well. And of course, it's evolved to much more of a program and providing more hands-on or direct access to this assistive technology. I have of course, 19 years experience with the assistive technology. Previously, I was a certified interpreter for the deaf. I interpreted for the deaf for many years, and actually interpreted for the deaf at Communication Services for the Deaf when I first moved to this area back in 1991. Prior to that, I did work in the electrical trades industry, and my schooling was basically at Minneapolis Technical College in the electrical trades program. I want to mention for one of the gentlemen that couldn't be here today, Chuck Fullenkamp. He is on a mission to Nicaragua. He goes there every 2 years, and he tries to gather up as much assistive technology as he can to go to this mission every other year. He is going with Keith Bundy this year, who many of you know, another blind individual that lives on the eastern part of the state. And they're taking along as many laptop computers as they can carry and assistive technologies that they can then provide to individuals in those in that area of the world. And so it's a neat thing that he does on his spare time, and so I wish him the best on this trip. He did start with Dakota Link in 1999. He does have a bachelor's degree in classical languages. He doesn't necessarily use that for the provision of assistive technology, but he is heavily involved in American Sign Language and uses that quite a bit, and has actually used that in working with deaf individuals that he's been referred to. He did go on to acquire a degree from Southeast Area Technical in electronic technology, and did work at Hutchison Technology for 8 years, and most of the time there was spent as a network technician. He moved to Rapid City, and he contacted me because my parents were deaf. He had worked with my mom in sign language courses in Sioux Falls, and said he was looking for a sign language partner. And I asked him what he did, and he told me what he did, and I said, well, I don't want to be your sign language partner, but I think you should apply for a job here. And so he did apply for the job, and he was hired not because he knew my mom, but because he was the most qualified for the job. And so he's been a good addition to Dakota Link. He works in the western part of the state, covering areas all the way to Pierre, and does work with a lot of blind and low vision individuals, but has also covered the gamut for us. And there's only a couple individuals that have worked for us that have worked with all types of individuals, and so he does that quite a bit. He does have some unusual cases that he's worked on. One that he is in the process of completing was someone who worked at an individual that was deaf, who is working at a convenience store, and that individual was their employer was wanting them to actually run the convenience store when they were not there, and so we went up there, and we're in the process of providing alerting systems, vibrating systems for the gas pumps, for when someone walks into the door, when someone calls the store, and that individual also is faced with people coming into the store and wanting to communicate with that individual. And initially they were thinking that they were going to use a communication system where they had a two-sided screen and a two-sided keyboard, and they were going to communicate back and forth by typing. We showed the individual and their employer an iPod Touch with Dragon Naturally Speaking installed on the iPod Touch, that did not require any training, and a person would be able to walk into the store and speak into the iPod Touch. The deaf person would turn that right around and see exactly what that person was saying, and then on that same iPod Touch was some augmentative communication software that individual then would be able to speak back through the iPod Touch to that individual what their response was to their needs. And so a fairly unique system. And I've asked all the other guys to talk generally about what they do, and to maybe talk about a unique case that they're involved in. And so with that, I know that when Bernie initially talked about sites that were on board, I wasn't sure if the rehab center was actually on board. Are there people at the rehab center?
We weren't at first, but we finally got on. Can you hear us?
Good.
Oh,
Yes, we definitely hear you, and I'd like to turn it over to Ted Carroll to introduce himself. Ted?
Hi, my name's Ted Carroll. I've been with Dakota Link since 1998. I graduated from Dakota State with a bachelor's degree in computer science and business administration. I've also got a certificate of assistive technology practice from CSUN, and I basically cover probably the southeastern part of South Dakota for the Sioux Falls district office. But I've also been other parts of the state. I also was, before I got with Dakota State, I was the computer instructor at the rehab center, and then transferred to the assistive technology project at Dakota State, and then became part of Dakota Link. And I've worked with a wide variety of blind and visually impaired individuals, ranging from a student that was a kindergartner all the way to folks in their 70s and 80s. And I'm right now working with an individual that it's kind of unique because of his two disabilities of visual impairment plus seizures, and trying to come up with an idea that'll work to help him with accessing the computer and being able to access the printed materials and things that he will need when he goes on to college. That's pretty much all I got for right now. Paige?
All right, my name is Paige Hudson, and I've been with Dakota Link. It's been 10 years last January, and I went to college at South Dakota State University and got a degree in psychology. And then after that, I moved out to Seattle and tried out a few different things, tried to go to grad school out there, got too expensive, came back and started working at Gateway. I learned computers in the meantime just on my own, and I climbed the ladder up at Gateway and was the training manager there for 5 years, and traveled and opened up different sites at Gateway, and started with new training sites and trained all the new trainers that train the technicians that help people on the phones to troubleshoot their computers. During that time, they paid for me to go to graduate school, so I went to grad school at the University of Sioux Falls to get my degree and master's degree in business. And during that time, I got recruited for a DVR company out in Seattle again. Seattle was obviously where I wanted to go for a while, so I went out there for a startup company, and we tried to start out ADSL lines with DVR, with your traditional digital video recording devices in different towns throughout the country. And that company was eventually bought out by Siemens Corporation, and I came back to South Dakota, and I had a little bit of money from that company, so I had some time to look around for what I really wanted to do, and I wanted to incorporate my education as well as some of my technical skills, and met Pat Zerny through the internet. We met at a hotel with the other manager that was there in a conference room, and decided that this is a really good fit for me to and for the company to do pretty much everything with regard to what my passions were, which was psychology and technology. So it was a great fit from the start. I was very excited about it, and I still am 10 years later. Through my course of working with Dakota Link, after 5 years of working in this industry, you can get certified as an assistive technology practitioner through a company called Resna. And I went through that, took the test a couple times, and passed it. And I'm now a certified assistive technology practitioner. I also, in the last couple of years, got elected to the ADA review board for the city of Sioux Falls, which meets once a month, and we go downtown and meet with contractors that are building new businesses throughout the city, and we want to make sure they're ADA compliant. So we speak to the contractors ahead of time and voice our concerns and make sure that everything is set up correctly in their design before they actually build something that is not accessible, and they have to go back and redo it. So that's kind of fun. We get to see new things that are happening throughout the city and make sure that they're accessible. So that's, as of late, my most activities related to Dakota Link in general. Specifically in relating to clients that I deal with, I deal a lot with people that are transitioning from high school into college. So I deal with a lot of different types of software like Dragon Naturally Speaking and Kurzweil and other programs such as that. But something more unique that I do, or that is included, every case is really kind of special. No individual is obviously the same. They all have different abilities. One of the things that we did last year with James Hanemichael is we put a Sure Hands lift up in a facility that is called Handy Riders, and they help people with disabilities learn how to ride a horse. And they were having trouble getting these students up onto the horse without any assistance. So we installed, I think it was like 30 feet up in the air, a Sure Hands track system that had a remote control that they could get the person onto their wheelchair with a Sure Hands harness and get them lifted up and safely placed onto the horse, and then they could walk around and be guided and ride a horse where they normally may not have been able to at all in the past. That's just one example. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. But so I don't keep rambling on, unless you have any questions, we'll go on to James and Brookings.
Thanks, Paige. James, before I introduce James, I do want to mention Paige talked about Resna a little bit there. Resna is the Rehabilitation Engineering Society of North America, and Chuck, myself, and Dave Shear are also certified as assistive technology practitioners, rehabilitation technicians with Resna. And our latest certified individual, James Hanemichael, should be there in Brookings. So, James, can we hear a little bit from you?
Sure. Again, my name is Jim Hanemichael. I'm out of the Brookings office. I have been with Dakota Link. It will be 7 years on March 1st. And my background, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from SDSU. I'm also CompTIA A+ and Network Plus certified. And like Pat mentioned, just this last May or so, I was Resna ATP certified. Prior to Dakota Link, I was in IT for probably about 15, 16 years, something like that, over a couple of different companies, and was looking for a new position, and this one came along, so I applied for it and met with Pat and Paige, and the interview seemed to go forever, but it was a good interview, and like I said, I'm still here after 7 years, so it must be working out. Similar to Paige, generally the students that I work with are those, or the individuals that I work with are those that are students transitioning from high school into college, work with a lot of the same things that Paige mentioned. Do work occasionally with individuals in the employment setting, so that always throws in some different challenges. And I have worked at times with students in elementary and middle school also. So it just kind of runs the gamut. One of those kind of unusual cases for me recently is I was working with a farmer that had a leg amputation from a farm accident, and he was looking for something to help him with hitching up to the tractor so that he didn't have to get in and out of the tractor multiple times. And he also had, to go through the gate into the cattle yard, so he'd have to get out of the tractor to open up the gate. And we ended up locating a couple of hitching devices so that he could back his tractor up, hook it up to the wagon without having to get out. He could also, when he needed to unhitch, just pull a rope and it would unhitch that. One of the devices would also handle connecting the PTO on the tractor so that he could do all of that without getting out of the vehicle. Then I also put in an electrified gate, drive-through gate to the cattle yard so that he could just drive his tractor right through there. It would swing out of the way and then pop back into place. So instead of doing things with computers and software and such, I was out in the cattle yard installing electric fence chargers and electric gates. And we also put in a couple of wireless cameras in his calving barn so that instead of getting up in the middle of the night and putting on his prosthetic leg and getting dressed and going out to the barn to check on his cows, he can just use his walker to get into the bathroom, turn on the TV in there, and watch the camera switch between the two cows, the two different camera views. And we're actually looking at putting in, he's getting a new barn, so we're looking at putting in some additional cameras in the new barn. That's what I've got to say for today.
Thanks, Jim. Out here we have Brett Burden. Brett?
Thank you, Pat. My name is Brett Burden. I've been with Dakota Link for almost 4 years. Previous to this, I worked at an IT company in Hill City. Did that for about a year. And I have also worked at Office Max as the printing department supervisor. I've also been self-employed for about 12 years now, doing computer repair. I have a associate's degree from Western Dakota Tech in computer networking, and I'm also Network Plus certified through CompTIA. Most of the territory I cover is Western South Dakota. I work with basically anybody. Most of it is a CCTV program or college student transition. I think the one case that stands out the most for me right now, and I'm actually still working with this person. He works for the city of Rapid City. He is blind, and he memorizes schedules throughout the building and directs people where to go. He uses JAWS and OpenBook to operate his computer, and he's actually mastered it to the point where he is demonstrating it to people that come into the building now. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Mark Cook up in Aberdeen.
You hear me okay?
You bet.
All right, okay. Well, I'm Mark Cook. I've been with Dakota Link just slightly less than Brett. I'll be 4 years in 1st of July. And before I came to work for Dakota Link, I got a bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science from the University of Washington. And then after that, I became CompTIA certified, which is a computer repair certification. Then I became Microsoft Network certified, HP printer certified, HP computer certified. Spent a lot of time doing computer repairs, some networking installations. Then I got hired on with an aerospace company to write the software for their inventory tracking and manufacture tracking basically they make carbon fiber that they make the airplane wings out of. And it had lots of certifications and things they had to track, so I worked on that software. Then I came out to South Dakota, ran a hardware store for 4 years. The recession took care of that for me. And after that, I came on board with Dakota Link. And since being with Dakota Link, I've learned an awful lot about assistive technology. I enjoy it. I've always liked working with people and helping people. And so with my technology background, that was a good fit for me. I enjoy it a lot. In terms of clients that I help, I'm kind of like James. I do a lot of college students, mostly reading, writing, some scheduling issues, but mostly I work with students here at NSU. But I also occasionally do get in the workplace. I'm working with a gal right now down in Miller, severely developmentally disabled, but she's able to clean tables at a fast food restaurant. But she has to have a constant caseworker with her to keep her on track. So we've developed a system where she wears a set of headphones and she has a device that gives her her instructions into her headphones for her. And it also has a paging system, so if they need her in the kitchen, they can page her as well. And we're hoping, we still are implementing that, we're hoping that will keep her on track so her caseworker can no longer have to be with her all the time. Also worked with a gentleman going to school. He had a severe neck injury, paraplegic. We gave him a computer system so he could go to school, had an eye tracking system where he could control his mouse with his eye movements, paired that with Dragon Naturally Speaking where he can talk and it will type what he says, plus do some computer control with that. Made a very effective system and allowed him to go down to, I think it was Madison to college, over in Minnesota. And so that worked out really well, and from what I have heard, he's doing very well down there. So had some good, interesting cases to work on. Not as fun as going out in the cattle yard, but still fun.
Thank you, Mark. Out here in Rapid City, some of you have worked with or at least spoken with Janet Werner in our office. She's been with us actually since 1993, a long time. And Janet currently does the billing for Dakota Link, and she also does spend some time working with an individual on a weekly basis with a developmental disability, utilizing the computer and doing email and with his parents and painting as well. He's almost an accomplished artist. Deb Storr in the office. Some of you have seen a lot of receipts from her. She handles ordering all the equipment and runs the lending library for us in the office. We're going to turn this back over to Steve now, and Steve's going to talk about the referral process and make mention of this broadband video that's out there. Steve?
Okay, thank you. Just want to check if is Yankton on board?
Yeah, they are.
We're here.
No one. Okay, well, anyway.
Where it was?
Yeah, I am. I just wanted to try to give you some credit. What I'm going to do here is show that broadband video. Dave Shear is on one of them. We got a couple stars that are in attendance today, so I'll see if this is going to work here for me.
We'll see how it comes across through the video conference and stuff. So now, do you need me to switch? You ready to switch it?
Yep.
You need to make that larger. You know,
Yeah,
make that larger.
I gotta
The far corner,
find the,
far right.
yeah,
That does it.
but I need that's still here.
But this was a kitchen like none I've seen.
Remember crazy technology we dreamed about 50 years ago?
Pops a picture of just how your dish will look, plus all the ingredients you need to cook.
From
Push button magic
to cool voice command technology.
We are about to take off on the highway of tomorrow. Stand by.
Well, today, broadband connected
Yes, that's what you were saying about it.
computers help make those dreams come true.
Things that we thought were out of this world.
Now they're part of our world.
Even governmental officials were not immune from attacks on their civil liberties.
And this assistive technology is especially valuable to disabled South Dakotans.
It's an incredible thing when you bring something new technologically to a person that allows them to do something that they previously enjoyed but haven't been able to do for some period of time. Closed circuit television, magnification for people with vision problems. To be able to talk to your computer and have it type for you, to be able to talk to your cell phone and have it dial the phone number for you.
I can dictate it directly into, a Word document or
Council. Joe Berhurick talks to his computer, helping folks with disabilities get jobs.
Broadband.
Joe says connecting them to powerful information on the internet is critical.
Absolutely. So that when you go into a job interview or completing an application, you can have a real good understanding of what that company is, what their needs are.
Assistive technology on broadband connected computers also lets more folks work from home.
We have people who have set up in
A lot of buffering here. How much more? Is
Just
it?
about done.
Okay.
independent businesses, telecommuting, if you will, from their own homes, because actually going from home to work is a huge barrier to them.
Well, it's extremely exciting. Individuals that had no idea that they would be able to, again, be productive in the work environment, and the excitement of that is fantastic.
Just set the timer and you're on your way.
Yesterday's dreams of technology are changing lives today in a broadband connected world.
We'll switch over back to the screen. Should switch back over. Yeah, we're getting a little buffering from the. If we're doing a wireless, probably what's happening there. But Steve can send out that internet access, that link.
Yeah, I
to
put
it.
that link to that site is on the agenda. So if you got some time, take a look at it, because it's pretty nice if it doesn't stop all the time like that. So, and good job to everybody that's on it. So.
You want the screen again?
Unfortunately, Joe's sick today, so he missed out on some of his 15 minutes of fame today.
That's why I was asking if the site was there. It was okay.
You want
and I'll switch a little bit. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to on the agenda below that broadband video, it talks about the speed test, and part of the broadband initiative, it's a grant they got, is to kind of map out the state and determine what the speed of access is in different locations. And so you can go online to that site and do this speed test, and it'll tell you how fast your upload and download speed is. And then it goes into their system and they map out the entire state. And I think Dakota Link might just start doing that with all the computers they set up for our consumers. They might just do that, not only to help the broadband initiative and map out the state, but so the consumers kind of know the speed of access that they've got wherever they're at a school or home or at a job site. So, and now I'm just going to go through the AT referral process real quick. So I'm going to go into Faces. Bernie's going to switch it over so that my computer's on, and I'll just walk through that process here of doing an AT referral. Well, that isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be. Well, here it is. Well, I guess I am in there. I selected a caseload of Rhonda's. She made up a consumer that I'm supposed to be using. Looky Lou she came up with. I thought was pretty good. The AT referral form is in the document manager. And I've already done one. I'm going to open up, and I put the text and stuff that I entered in red so you'll be able to see it better. So I'm just going to go into edit this AT referral. And by the time you get to do an AT referral, you've already entered in all the name and address and contact information, and it's automatically filled in the form in this top section. So the first thing you really need to do is just select one of the priorities for the referral. And most of them that we do are going to be standard priority. We've got the medium and high priority, which are pretty short turnaround, 5 days and 2 days. So you only use those if you're in a situation where you really need them. Otherwise, it's just standard. And we want to have you put some indication of why you chose that medium or high priority when you do it. And you can see I put on there, the computer isn't working and she needs it to complete her daily job duties. I've seen some of them come in for school. They have assignments and that they need to get done. They use their computer for that. They need to get it looked at right away. And Dakota Link is pretty good at those priorities, but you need to only use them if it's really needed. Then we've got a section in there where you just want to indicate whether the referral is for an employment or education. And that's pretty self-explanatory. You just check one of the sections there. And then we get down to this main part of the referral, which is just listing the functional limitations and the reason for the referral. And I see a lot of times, I get a copy of all the referrals, and I see a lot of times that the counselors will cut and paste and put in their disability information. Well, it's useful information, but saying somebody is hard of hearing isn't as useful as the actual functional limitations. Or somebody has a learning disability, we'd rather see kind of like some of the examples I've put in here. You know, they can't read printed text, and to inform them if the teachers, you know, have read to them when they're in high school. And we've run across a lot of times where the consumers are familiar with like a Kurzweil, but the ones that the school had was a real old version, and they've made a lot of improvements in those systems. The Kurzweil and the Dragon Naturally Speaking is way better now than it was when a lot of them first were introduced to it, and so maybe got frustrated and stopped using it. So if you know any of that information, it's good to put in here. That other example was real similar to that the situation Pat explained about the alarms. You know, they can't hear alarms or signals or timers at work. That gives the technicians a lot of kind of advanced ideas, and they'll bring along some stuff to address those issues. Communication, they've got a lot of different communication devices that they can show. So you can kind of see, you don't need to put a whole lot of information in there, but try to put the functional limitations versus just what the disability is. And then the reason for the deferral, you just got to give them some ideas on what you're looking at. And you might not have a real good idea of what the solution might be, but anything you can put in there will be helpful. And then the bottom there where I put some special contact information, and I put in here where it should be done at the work site, so they want to find a time to do that, and you got to contact their supervisor, John Doe, not quite as good as Rhonda's Looky Lou, but everybody knows who John Doe is. But give them some specifics on when to do the assessment, a contact information like it says for the supervisor, so that they can schedule a time for you to be there and be expecting the call. And then after you get to this point is where you send the email. And I guess I skipped a little bit over, there is a program guide out here that's still accurate that you can use that walks you through this whole process in a lot more detailed steps. But the main part of it is just getting the referral in. And you can look at the agenda for the program guide. And that's also got the informed choice information right attached to that guide. And it does say in there for the email, it's not quite correct. You go to Tools and then Send Email. And this is all automated to where once you hit the Send Email, it's got the address to Dakota Link where it goes, and then it'll have the counselor's email, so you'll get a copy of it. And then it's got myself and it's got Nancy Hone's email addresses in there. You can send it to both of them, or you can just delete the one that you don't want to send it to. And I'm just going to leave them there. And then it gives us a little information. It's got the counselor, or the consumer's initials, and it says AT referral. And so everyone you do, I get a copy of it, or Nancy gets a copy, and Dakota Link does. And then after you send the email, I should probably just cancel this one, right? I'm just going to cancel this, but it would send. And then, hopefully within about 2 days or less, you should get a receipt from Dakota Link. And if you don't get that receipt right away, you should just send it again. We don't run across that very often, but it's happened a few times, and when it has happened, they've waited a week before they got it, and it's just, we're lucky it wasn't a high priority referral that somehow got lost or didn't get sent. You can switch that back now, Bernie. Okay. And then in that receipt, one of the things that's important to do, once you get that receipt, it'll tell you who's going to do the referral and when the expected contact is going to be, and it'll include what the expected or estimated cost is going to be. And once you get that is when you would authorize for those services. And then you need to make sure that the consumer is aware of, yeah, I did the referral and they're supposed to be contacting you, early next week to set up a time to do this assessment. And sometimes if it's at a job site, you need to contact those people. You need to make sure that they're aware that Dakota Link's going to be calling and setting up an assessment. Because I'm sure Dakota Link has called sometimes and either the consumer or the employer or whoever it is has no idea even who is calling, and then they have to try to explain what they're calling to schedule to do. And then after the technicians do that assessment, they'll send you a report. And a lot of times in that report, they include a lot of stuff that's wasn't really requested in the referral. But I think that the technicians use a template for that report during that assessment, and there's sections on there dealing with independent living services and transportation, and how well are they, their organizational skills and scheduling of work tasks or school assignments and that kind of thing. So they ask them a lot of those questions, and then they get feedback, and so they might include some recommendations in there on some stuff that you never really listed in the referral, but they included it in the report. But what you need to remember is that the counselors are the ones that make the final decision on that. Just because they put something in the report doesn't mean you have to provide it. And I see a lot of times in the reports that it says, the consumer said this, or the consumer asked for this. And the technicians are there, and so they show them that stuff. And they might identify something and say the consumer said they wanted, this option on their computer, so I've included it. But that doesn't mean that you have to provide it. And the referrals can be done.
Steve, can I ask, would it be a good suggestion in those situations of probably just to give the technician a call and inquire about that device and stuff like that?
Yeah.
May not fully know what the whole situation was.
Yep. And if anytime you get something in the report that you're not expecting or you have a question, the technicians are all willing to take a phone call and explain more. They put quite a lot of detail in the report about the stuff, but like I said, a lot of times it's something the consumer requested once they got there. So just give the technicians a call and they'll help explain that. And the Dakota Link is available to buy just devices from. You don't really need to get an assessment. You can just buy devices directly from them, but you need to make sure that the consumer isn't going to need any installation or training on that device, because if they do need that, then you should use the referral process. But there are available just to buy devices directly from. And just because we have this process in place, doesn't mean that that we're trying to restrict all of our AT devices and equipment that we buy, to get them only from Dakota Link. You still can get them from anybody you want for the consumer choice part of it. But Dakota Link is basically the primary contact for our AT services, and they do a real good job at doing
Well, I
that.
think the one comes across with computers. Sometimes you got to realize that you will get the support services and the AT go together in case there are some problems or issues with the computer or something like that.
The technicians are really good at working with the disability coordinators at the schools and with the technology people at the schools to make sure that if they've got special software that they need to use to access it, that it's going to be compatible with their systems that they use. Especially with employment, there's a lot of times you've got call centers or whatever the special programs and stuff they're using in an employment situation. You got to make sure that your assistive devices that you're interfacing with their systems are going to be compatible, and all the techs can speak the same language as the information people at those businesses, so they can take care of that ahead of time. That's essentially what I have for the referral process. I don't know if anybody has any questions or had any problems with it. It's really been working pretty smoothly for a long time. We just need to try to use it a lot more.
Yep, go ahead. I got a real quick comment. This is Mark out in Aberdeen. When the counselors are gathering information, if the client has an email address, that's nice to have included, because sometimes you have a little trouble getting them on a phone, but a lot of times they'll respond to their email. So that would be real beneficial.
That is one of the fields that we've merged into the AT referral when that's sent in. If they've got an email address that we've entered into our system as part of the initial intake stuff, it would show up on there. But you could always ask. Maybe sometimes they just don't give it, and counselors could ask if they have an email address. And once you enter it in there, then it will automatically be on the referral.
Yeah, I think when you do bring up that form and there's no email address there, and you know the person has the email address, either copy it in or put it into the personal data page, I believe it's that. Personal information, and then re-merge that document again or something like that. So it would be a good way to get a hold of the individuals.
Other questions?
Jelaine, Rapid City. I do have a question. It is a good idea that Bernie mentioned earlier to authorize some extra hours for college students, but how many hours would you estimate? I know that I have used a number of hours afterwards and had to, like, reauthorize and stuff for situations that come up. And I wondered, Pat, if you might have a suggestion, or Bernie.
I'm just throw out a number. Pat, maybe you have a better idea, but I would say maybe 5 or more, or something like that. Because I know a specific example where the student was a peer client, went to Aberdeen, had problems with the printer connectivity or whatever, and some of the AT stuff. I assume probably.
Well, you can maybe get somewhat
hours,
of an idea by looking at the initial assessment. If there was, 3 hours of travel time in there to get there, you might have to consider, well, I'm going to have at least 3 hours if I want another visit for a couple, use that as kind of a gauge maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is right in Aberdeen where the tech was right there, which worked really nice then. So, I don't know, maybe, you guys have a better estimate number of hours, but I think there should be some hours involved into there to allow that more immediate response.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we have those trouble calls or follow-up visits, they tend to be right around 2 hours on an average, and so that, considering or excluding any travel time, would be something that I guess I would consider if I was in your shoes.
Margie in Rapid City, I had a question too. Is there any sort of, when we buy equipment through Dakota Link, do they give us any sort of guarantee besides what the company would give on that computer?
Pat, you can probably address this because you've dealt with more of the schools are requiring a lot of warranties and stuff on computers now too. So,
but let me add on to that too. Again, the case I'm thinking of is there was hardware failure onto it where your power cord plugs into your laptop broke, and it was purchased through Dakota Link, and Dakota Link was able to repair that. I don't think they had to get a new motherboard or what it was into there, but. Do we still include a warranty, extended warranty when we purchase those laptops?
Yes, I guess a couple things in regards to that. I have examples here of several of the schools in the state that are now starting to provide their laptops, and we're trying to stay on top of that as best as possible. The schools that do provide the laptops include a 3-year not only warranty but accidental damage warranty, and there's an extra cost associated with that. I looked at Southeast Votech, and I looked at Lake Area up there in Watertown. And those computer systems that they're currently recommending are $1,300, and they do include the accidental damage warranty. And on top of that, Southeast Tech is charging another $165 per semester for software maintenance and accidental damage service if needed. Places like Western Dakota out here, they want the individuals to still bring in their own computers, but it does say on their website that they want the accidental damage warranty included if that person does purchase it on their own. Now, something that we started many years ago because of a couple cases that we didn't have an accidental damage warranty on there, and a consumer did drop his computer or her computer and had to go back and work with the VR office in some cases to get it replaced, or in some cases to repair it, or in other cases to even purchase their own repair or replacement. We decided that it was best to do the accidental damage warranty. And of course, I think we're consistent with the schools that are out there and the colleges as well. With the accidental damage warranty, or with any warranty, obviously it's direct with the company that provides the equipment. We have obviously done some. There are obviously times when we charge for our time to go out there and mediate between the consumer and Dell, for example. There have been other times where we've done a phone call or tried to mediate some correction without charging. But it does take time, and we do not get paid for it. We do not make enough on the computer system to really compensate for any of that. So we typically do have to charge for facilitating some of that. And I think any of you who have been involved with trying to get a computer repaired under warranty, sometimes you're not sure who you're talking to, and sometimes they want a lot of information from you regarding your computer that you might have difficulty providing them, and so we're happy to provide that service. We've had a real good luck with the Dell computers. We've had a couple cases where, and one of them was with a person here in this room that had many problems, but that was one out of, I would say, hundreds of cases where we had a computer repaired and then had to do a follow-up repair on that computer. I think more times than not, or 99% of the time, we've had very good response as far as warranty goes. As far as the sale of equipment goes, we have, because of our relationship with the state and because of our relationship with the Tech Act programs, on software especially, that we are able to provide a discount for, we definitely pass on that discount. There's a lot of items where we do not buy enough volume to pass on a discount for, like some of the peripherals that we may have to purchase for a computer system, and even the computer systems themselves, we might not purchase enough to really get a volume discount. I mentioned that, for example, Southeast and Lake area are providing those computer systems at about $1,300 a piece. Well, Southeast Votech purchases about 2,000 computers a year, and so their buying volume is 10 times greater than what ours is. But nonetheless, we when someone is responsible to bring in their own computer, we try to compete with that. But we know that these schools, when they do provide the computer systems, they are also offering to provide the software that the student may need during the duration of their stay. And in that regard, the department and the student is saved a lot of headache getting that software from the school on a loan basis from the school. I wanted to touch just a little bit on what Steve said about purchasing equipment directly. He mentioned that does not need a referral, and I agree with that. We do have several counselors that'll send me an email directly and say I need a quote on a Pebble or some other type of device for an individual, and they'll tell me whether they want that device sent directly or if they want installation and training with that device. Usually those devices have been identified, for example, by a visit at the rehab center for the blind. But we do have other cases where someone has emailed us to provide a piece of equipment only, and that's worked out fairly well. I want to talk a little bit, unless people have more questions that they wanted to direct back to Steve there regarding the referral process. I know that there have been cases that have come up where there has been some unfamiliarity with the referral process and using the referral form, and of course that was in part one of the reasons why we offered and wanted to do this session with you all today. I want to talk a little bit about the priority designations, and we have the standard and the medium and the high priority. The high priority is intended for direct failure, and that person can absolutely not do their job or their homework, and it's usually limited to an instance where I would suggest that it's usually limited to a situation where someone is doing finals or preparing for a final test, or someone is definitely in a position where they might lose their job. And then the medium priorities, we get them more frequently, and that those definitely require a 2-day response, and we do have difficulty getting a completed report back to you in 2 days, but we definitely try our best to do so. And depending on the workload, we definitely try to meet those priority levels. The standard priority is a 21-day turnaround with 7 days to contact the individuals, 14 days for the report, and then a completed report back to you within 21 days. Those typically are for those that have no immediate needs. I know a lot of you are very good about looking real forward for your consumer, maybe even to the next school year, where they're a high school student participating in their final semester, and you want to make sure that they at least have the equipment ready to hit the ground running when school starts in the fall. I asked the guys to talk about a variety of not only normal situations that they're involved in, but also some of the unusual ones that they're involved in, so that you would get kind of a glimpse of the depth of situations that we do get involved in. Through our experience with your program, and through our experience with some of the others that I touched on, the neuromuscular program and working with Ed, and working with independent living, I can say that we've been involved in many, if not all, areas of assistive technology, and we're available to provide services in those areas. We do have areas where we work with a lot of high-tech equipment. But we do have areas where we've worked with a lot of low-tech equipment as well, and I know that even recently we've had several situations where These were simple and inexpensive accommodations that helped keep that individual successfully employed in their job. And sometimes the services were far greater than what the actual technology was, but that was the cost of keeping them employed, and I think it's still well worth the investment. We definitely encourage you to look at repossessed equipment when providing equipment to these individuals. I know some are real good about checking the repossessed list and making sure that that some of that equipment might be available for individuals. I know that some of you have asked us to keep a piece of equipment till we find another home for that individual, and we definitely do that. Sometimes a piece of equipment that we've got from a rehab or rehabilitation services client, we might give out to a service to the blind client or vice versa. But we try to at least note in the report where we're recommending that piece of equipment comes from, at least that previous client's last name, so that you can do whatever paperwork on your end to make that happen. And I definitely encourage recycling equipment in that regards. We do have other entities that we work with. We've done a lot of work for the Veterans Administration, the Tribal 110 programs. We've done work for the Computer Accommodations Program with the federal government. We've done work with over 45 different school districts. We've done private pays where someone has come in on their own to look for a piece of equipment and some training to go with that. Obviously, with other businesses and organizations, we've also gone out of state, making sure that we can keep these 4 offices going along with these 7 technicians, that we can continue to have the kind of comprehensive statewide coverage that we've all wanted, both Dakota Link and the department. We've found ourselves doing work in North Dakota and Wyoming and Nebraska and Iowa. Done a little work in Montana. We actually had someone call yesterday or last week considering some of our services down in Wichita, Kansas. We obviously would rather stay 100% in this state. We are not interested in traveling only, like I said, to make ends meet. Do we take on some of these opportunities in other states? Do we have any questions regarding anything that I've said, Bernie or Steve or even Dave Shear has mentioned throughout the...
Pat, this is Bernie. I just want to clarify again, too. You guys are the distributor for, is it Dell Computers? Am I correct?
We resell them, yes. I don't know if they would consider us a distributor. Okay. But
well, what I'm saying is, if we have warranty work needed, then you guys handle that. Am I correct on that?
Yes, we definitely can.
Okay, because that's where I think
all the computers.
Go ahead.
Make sure that the computers are registered in the individual's name, so there's no problem whether that individual decides to call Dell or whether we call Dell. We do not anticipate any problems with the computer system and getting it repaired. We have had situations where the computer was repossessed and was given out to another client, and we have been successful in most cases getting repair work done on those as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a strength of Dakota Link, because I know sometimes a person may look at the list and say, well, I know I can go to Walmart and get an Acer computer cheaper, but the problem you run into is when there is problems with that computer, And if you're going to school or if you're on a job, you may be looking at that computer be gone, shipped in the mail for a couple of weeks trying to get repaired. Versus when it is purchased through Dakota Link, there is that support service available to help with that repair. So that's something to keep remember, especially when there's assistive technology involved onto there, or it's a student going to school. I mean, if they need that computer for their AT, they need it pretty well every day, and they can't wait 2 weeks for it to be repaired. So,
I think that's a good point, Bernie. The way that it's set up with Dell, especially on the accidental damage warranties, is that a Dell certified computer technician will be at our facility within 2 days, or at whatever location we want to take care of that computer issue. The 2 days is usually only to allow for a piece of equipment to be shipped out from Dell. But that's much different than getting the type of warranty that makes you have to package it up and ship it back to one of these other companies to get it repaired. And like you said, it could end up being a 2-week turnaround for something like that. We typically have much better response rate than you would find. In addition, that accidental damage warranty is provided directly from Dell, whereas in some cases through some of these other stores, they are actually providing the warranty, not the company. And there could be you could have some good luck, good success there, and you could have some questionable success as well.
Next business day parts.
Are there questions of Pat or Steve from the other offices?
This is Mary in Spearfish.
Yes, Mary.
Yes, I was back to what Julaine was saying about authorizing for additional hours of services or follow along. I think that's a great idea too, and I'm wondering if, like, when the technicians go out and do the assessments, if they kind of get an idea of a consumer who maybe has very little knowledge about the equipment or running a computer, or if someone has a lot of equipment that they're recommending, or a sophisticated system, if maybe at that point just put it on the estimate, and then we go by whatever you send as recommendations, if that would work.
I think that's a good idea, Mary, and we can definitely work with our guys to make those recommendations up front. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Because otherwise we may not know,
Good point.
And a lot of times when Dakota Link does it, some of those people that have a more sophisticated system, they may put 2 trips in there to provide the training, but I think in a lot of cases it might be a good idea to do another follow-up, 6 months down the road or something, just to see that they're still using it as they intended, and that if there's anything else they need, offer that help to the consumers.
Yeah. While we're talking about students, and it's a case I think of too, I highly recommend that you start getting an assistive technology evaluation while they're, before they finish high school. Because if you wait till right before they're going to college, it's getting a little too late onto there. Get that done soon so they can even start using it a little bit towards the tail end of the high school. And they should be using it in the high school at the school system, but this would be theirs to continue to work with.
And I've seen it in a lot of the reports where the student is using something in high school, but it's a 5-year-old technology and they haven't updated it, or they didn't have anybody that really understood how to use it. So, and then they've just been amazed to see the newer versions of it and how much better it is and how much better it works. So, even though they have been using it, if they don't have the newest versions, and that's what Dakota Link is good at too, of making sure they get those updates and upgrades, when they're available, because a lot of them are for no cost.
Yeah. Another thing we've done, I think we've got a few places out there where we do have some client computers that are available to use during an assessment stage. You know, if you have a repossessed one or whatever that is purchased on a client case, and if you just want to try the computer out for this individual, we can pay Dakota Link to basically refurbish that and set it up for that client too, before we jump in to purchase a new system for that. I mean, that may be an option out there too, because I know we have a few of them out there.
Yeah.
Other questions out there from the field? We do have about 15 minutes left.
This is Jennifer from Yankton. I have a question about mainly like communication devices and the new iPods and all the apps that are coming out. And I'm in a situation where there's multiple funding sources. It's a student at an adjustment training center. So you have the school funding, you have Medicaid funding, and you have us involved. And I guess I'm just wondering what we need to do in the situations, because Medicaid will not fund an iPod or an iPad because it isn't a designated communication device. But yet, on the other hand, for cost, we can get an iPod Touch with an app on it that is very convenient for the person to have at work for thousands of dollars less than what it would cost for a communication device through Medicaid. So what do we do in those situations?
Who are you asking?
Anybody. I mean, from our voc rehab standpoint, we're the last, I don't want to say funder of last resort, so really we should be looking for Medicaid. But on the other hand, for convenience and as far as technology goes to meet our needs, it's much cheaper and faster to go this other route.
I honestly wouldn't have a problem purchasing it.
And part of what we've looked at too, and what you read about, is that the consumer has to feel comfortable using the device, and getting them a big communication device maybe singles them out more. Where you give them the iPad, they're just like everybody else. They've got the newest technology and the newest thing.
My only caution on is make sure they understand it's for this person because of this employment situation, because you may have 5 referrals next week for other phones and stuff like that. I mean, that's just only caution there. That's
it's got to be about the best option
for that
justified and student. But.
Well, and the school's willing to fund that, but they're saying when she turns 21, she has to hand it back to them. So.
Well, our agreement, I'd have to look back into that with education. Yeah, the school can fund that and let them turn it over back to the school at age 21, and we'll buy them one that's probably by then half the price.
Yeah. Okay.
I think most of the technicians are pretty up on all the new applications and the free applications and things that are out there, and they do a pretty good job at considering that when they're looking for solutions for people.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how close this kid is to, if they're a senior and they're done like this next year, let's just buy it and be done with it. But if they got a couple years left, the school's willing to pay for it and say they got to turn it back over when they turn 21, then let the school pay for it, and we'll tell the consumer that we'll replace it with a newer one for half the price when they do turn 21. Other questions? That's a good one, Jennifer. Anything else out there? Otherwise, we'll turn it back over to Pat or Steve for any final comments. We only got 10 minutes left, so we're doing pretty good on time. Pat, do you have any closing things you want to say?
I just want to once again thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I know that all the technicians and the project feels the same, that we want to continue our partnership, And without your support, of course, the program would not be what it is today. And so thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat, and thank the Dakota Link staff for joining us today. And we feel we've got a very quality service, and you guys, it really has worked well in our offices, and especially where you have now expanded to, such as like Aberdeen and Brookings, where we never had staff before. It just, when it's more available, it just seems to work better. So, again, thanks everyone, and that pretty well concludes video conference session for today. Make sure your system is muted when you get done, because it'll still stay connected probably for another 10 minutes to the bridge end. So have a good day, and we'll see you later.